right? The big ears and the big tall guys swimming underwater. I'm not saying that's where I'm not. Maybe for all I know, that
in 1982, and the story of the big ears that legend goes back thousands of years.
Well, I'm not saying that's not where George Lucas got the idea, but I'm just saying that's where it just sounds familiar. That's all. And I'm not saying it ruins the credibility of it, but I guess it comes right down to it is we that's where again, it's better to have some sort of photographic or proof. What about satellite imagery on those deep water lakes? Why wouldn't that have an effect? Why wouldn't they be able to pass some sort of satellite over that area? They're able to do so much with mapping, mountains underwater. I would think they'd be able to determine whether there is something under there.
In 1982?
Not in 1980, but I mean now. I mean, you think?
I don't know what is it that they do and what is it that they research. Yeah. I don't see. I keep saying that a lot of the information that I and my colleagues in this former Soviet Union had came out from between 1980, I would say 88, 1994. After that, there's a lot of, there's much more secrecy in Russia. They guard their secrets, especially because of the, because of the competition with other major powers over who will control the oceans. They're not as eager to release information like that. So we deal with what's given to us. I am sure there are photographs, I hope so, somewhere. I've mentioned such photographs in my book. I don't have them. I wish I did in my book, the Mysterious Sky, the one that I co-wrote with Philip Mantle. There are photographs. Some are very good, and you can't explain them away. No. But that's all we have.
Yeah. Nope. I know that. And there are... I wouldn't want to explain them away. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, some of these are so interesting that I don't want to just find some cheap excuse for why they can't be true. What do you think? And when you hear some of the other research that the Nazis were doing, what else do you think the Nazis were trying to do with this research that they had? What was the end game for the Nazis?
The end game was to control people. This is what had been attributed to the Soviets in the movie, Indiana Jones, but basically to promote Germanic race and control all others, and to gain, it's more than that. Hitler was a little bit more complicated than just that. He didn't care about his people also. He cared about ultimate power. He believed that there are beings of gigantic powers present on this planet, and he was trying to reach them. I'm speaking based on Russian sources and materials. I will just basically put everything together briefly. Apparently, he thought that he could reach, let's say, a powerful mind that is present on this planet. He even said that he was once in the presence of the super being, and it was a terrible presence, he mentioned. Basically, I think we're dealing with a completely insane personality who was able to control his country for 12 years and steeped in ritualistic nonsense, but based on this idiotic belief and racial, policies, millions of people died, whether massacred, killed, or as a result of the war. That didn't happen in the Soviet Union. They killed millions of people too, but not based on ritualistic nonsense.
Well, I guess it's nonsense, right? I mean, a lot of it was nonsense, what they were willing to kill people for in the Soviet Union. It just wasn't ritualistic nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was kind of its own ritual. It was sort of a creation of its own myths.
You know what? From 1925 to 1937, they had their own secret research, maybe similar to Anna Nerba, maybe with not as evil purposes, but they had their own KGB of the time had been running research into the paranormal, and it was very interesting, and I'd like to find out what happened to the files, but I'll never do. But it was crushed by Stalin at the end. He did not believe in anything like that. He believed in himself, in his own power, and his own strength. And he believed in tanks and airplanes, not in crystal skulls.
Right.
And he destroyed. I know that I can give you names. I can give you, if we have time. But it's in my. I've published articles about it. I'll publish more. And it was a very interesting research. They also went after a lot of, objects and stories and happenings that they had recorded. They studied mind research. They studied, the power of the mind, hypnotism. Right. They studied a few other things, but they were massacred at the end.
Right. We're talking with Paul Stonehill, who's an expert on the Soviet side, or the Russian, the Eurasian side of UFO investigations and more. And we will go to the phones early for Paul Stonehill coming up next on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Punnett. I want to get you in on this conversation early with Paul Stonehill. We'll stay with him for the rest of the show, enjoying it very much. But I know that there are many of these conversations that we've had in the past that intersect Paul Stonehill's research, and I'm not getting to all of the questions, I fear, especially on the crystal skull thing. I was reading about that a lot this week in anticipation of this conversation, and I guess part of it is in the end I end up sort of feeling like it's all a big hoax. There's no such thing. These never happened. And I don't have any other evidence that would say that it did. I mean, I almost wish that I could keep a more open mind on those crystal skulls, because they sure are an intriguing artifact. Was it all just set up to make some fast money back in 1860? Or could there be something else more at work? We'll explore that and the rest of your questions with Paul Stonehill next on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Punnett. No surprise, a full boat of calls for Paul Stonehill on Coast to Coast AM. We'll get to those in just a second. But, Paul, before we do, let me ask you, again, I'm asking you to try to put yourself a little bit into the minds of these extraterrestrials. And you said earlier that you felt like they were sort of self-appointed planetary referees, a kind of guardian angel to look over us to try to keep us from obliterating ourselves or, for that matter, obliterating other things in space. So why wouldn't they stop a Stalin? Why wouldn't they stop a Soviet despot or anybody, any leader from murdering so many millions of people?
I cannot tell you that. What was it in the Star Trek Fifth? They had a limitation placed on them not to interfere, but they had to interfere once in a while. Maybe that I can't, but seriously, I cannot grasp an alien mind.
I understand that. I think you're thinking of like a prime directive that said not to interfere, but to place themselves on the border between, say, Russia and China as a way of interfering, as a way of trying to keep those two superpowers from annihilating each other, or for coming after the United States, for example, that seems like the ultimate kind of interference.
Quite possibly so.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer yet. I wish I had.
I understand. And I keep asking you to try to answer what you can answer, and I know that. But I'm curious about that theory, because I believe in it too. If there are extraterrestrials here, if they are amongst us, then I believe that there must be some higher purpose that they're serving. I wish they'd do more of it, not less of it. Let's get to Ryan in Seattle on a wild card line on Coast to Coast AM for Paul Stonehill. Ryan, you're talking with Paul. Go ahead. I've got him up on my end, Teddy. Is there just nobody there? Okay, we'll just put him on hold, and I'm sorry about that. Sorry we missed you. We'll get to John in Minnesota on Coast to Coast AM. John?
Hey, I got two things. First and foremost, that video in Denver of the peeping alien?
The supposed video, yes.
Yep, matching the still on your website. I believe I found it. It's been leaked.
Where would you have found that?
Top Secret, or above topsecret.com has posted the video.
There was a faked video rolling around.
Yep, I saw that one too.
Okay, so this one's different than that one.
I sent George the link to it.
Okay, well, I'll take a look for it right now, but go ahead.
Okay, my question is for the guest. Do you believe that aliens are from other planets or interdimensional?
Actually, there could be more than one group of beings on this planet, aliens. And as witnessed by reports of conflicts between them, just based on information